A cold breeze hits your arm. A sad song swells at exactly the right moment. A horror movie goes quiet right before something jumps out. And suddenly your skin is covered in tiny bumps and every hair on your arm is standing straight up like your body is trying to do something with hair you barely even have anymore. You don't have fur. You haven't had fur in over 1,000,000 years. So why does your body still do this? Goosebumps happen because of a tiny muscle attached to the base of every hair follicle on your body, called the arrector pili. When that muscle contracts, it pulls the hair follicle upright, and the small bump of skin around it puckers up, creating the little raised dots you can see and feel. It's a genuine, coordinated muscular reflex, triggered automatically by your nervous system, not some vague skin reaction or passive response. Your body is deliberately, precisely yanking thousands of individual hairs into a standing position, all at once, on command, using a dedicated muscle built for exactly that single job and nothing else. This reflex isn't unique to humans, and it isn't new. Nearly every mammal has the exact same arrector pili muscles doing the exact same job, and in a fur-covered animal, this reflex actually does something useful. It fluffs up their entire coat, thickening it dramatically in an instant. A cat's fur puffing out, a dog's hackles rising, a startled porcupine's quills lifting. These are all the same basic mechanism as your goosebumps, just working on a body that still has enough hair for the effect to matter. In a furred animal, raising the hair like this traps a noticeably thicker layer of air close to the skin, and trapped air is an excellent insulator, since still air conducts heat away from the body far more slowly than a flat, compressed coat does. A fluffed-up coat holds significantly more warmth than a flat one, which is exactly why this reflex evolved as an automatic response to cold in the first place. Your ancestors had this same advantage once back when there was enough body hair covering them for the trapped air effect to genuinely matter for staying warm. Then humans lost most of their body hair, largely for temperature control in a completely different direction, cooling down rather than warming up, and that trade left this particular reflex with almost nothing left to work with. Your arrector pili muscles still fire exactly the same way they always did, still yank on every hair follicle exactly on schedule, but with only short, fine hairs left to move, there's no meaningful layer of trapped air being created anymore. You get the bumps. You get the reflex. You don't get any of the actual warmth it was originally built to provide, no matter how cold the room gets or how hard your skin tries. Cold isn't the only trigger for this reflex either. The same arrector pili system also activates during fear or perceived threat, and in a furred animal, this serves a completely different purpose, making the animal look larger and more intimidating. A frightened cat arching its back with fur standing on end, a wolf's hackles rising before a confrontation. These displays exist specifically to bluff a potential threat into backing off, using nothing more than raised hair to fake a bigger, more dangerous-looking body. The classic Halloween cat pose is a perfect example of this in action. Arched back, tail puffed out, fur standing on end across the entire body, all working together to make a genuinely small animal look considerably larger and more dangerous than it actually is. Porcupines take this even further, using the same basic reflex to raise their quills into a defensive position when threatened, turning a raised hair response into an active physical weapon rather than just a visual bluff. In both cases, the underlying mechanism is identical to what happens on your arm during a scary movie. The only real difference is that their bodies still have enough material for the reflex to actually accomplish something. This is where it gets genuinely strange, because humans get goosebumps from something no other animal seems to experience quite the same way: pure emotion, with no physical trigger involved at all. A swelling piece of music, a moving scene in a film, an unexpected moment of awe, these can all trigger the exact same arrector pili reflex as cold or fear, even though there's no temperature change and no actual threat anywhere nearby. Researchers studying this phenomenon, sometimes called frisson, have found its link to activity in the brain's reward and dopamine pathways, suggesting this ancient physical reflex somehow got wired into an entirely modern, entirely abstract experience, being emotionally moved by something. A widely cited 2011 study by researcher Valerie Salimpour and colleagues used brain imaging to track what happens during a musically induced chill in real time, and found a measurable spike in dopamine release specifically in the moments leading up to and during the peak of the chill, in the same brain regions activated by food, certain drugs, and other clearly rewarding experiences. Participants in the study could reliably identify the exact moments in a favorite piece of music where chills were about to hit, and the brain activity tracked right alongside that anticipation, not just the peak itself. That's a genuinely odd finding once you sit with it. A a purely physical, ancient skin reflex tied to temperature and threat for nearly all of its evolutionary history, showing up as part of the brain's core, reward circuitry during something as abstract as listening to a favorite piece of music. This is a genuinely strange kind of evolutionary leftover. The reflex itself is completely functionless now for its original purpose, no meaningful warmth, no real size illusion on a mostly hairless body, and yet it never simply switched off or disappeared the way you might expect a useless trait to eventually fade out. Evolution doesn't typically bother removing a harmless, low-cost reflex just because its original job became obsolete, especially not quickly, since there's no real survival pressure pushing it to go away. Useless but harmless traits like this one can persist for an extremely long time, quietly riding along in the background long after the specific problem they were built to solve stopped applying to the body carrying them. It's worth being honest about how much of this emotional piece is still genuinely unclear. Researchers don't fully agree on exactly why an ancient, physical, threatened, cold-related reflex would get hijacked by music or art in the first place, and there are competing explanations for the connection rather than one single settled answer, including ideas about shared ancestral responses to loud or sudden sounds getting reinterpreted by a more complex modern brain. It's also not a universal experience. Studies on musical chills suggest meaningful individual variation, with some people reporting frequent emotional goosebumps and others rarely or never experiencing them at all, correlated in some research with certain personality traits like openness to experience, though even that link isn't considered fully settled either, and plenty of people who never get chills from music are not missing anything wrong with them. So the next time a song gives you chills, or a cold gust of wind covers your arms in tiny bumps, what you're actually feeling is a fully intact, perfectly functional piece of very old machinery, just running with almost nothing left to actually operate on. It's not a glitch, and it's not really doing anything useful anymore either, in any practical sense a modern body actually needs. It's simply still there, quietly firing away exactly as designed, on a body that stopped needing it a very long time ago, faithfully doing its job long after the job stopped mattering. A tiny, pointless-seeming shiver across your skin turns out to be a fully preserved fragment of a body plan you left behind over 1,000,000 years ago, still running exactly on schedule every single time. That's exactly the kind of hidden thread this channel exists to dig up. If you want more of these, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.